I'd like to introduce Nick Vandergragt, who is going to be our speaker for today. Nick is going to talk to us about waste of energy, and any further questions after that will be invited, and hopefully
answer them.
He can answer every one of them.
He places more confidence in me than I think he is justified. But yeah, energy from waste, just to give you an idea, it's the idea of taking garbage and turning it into useful energy. Kind of like what my mother-in-law was hoping my wife would do to me when we first got married 32 years ago. Don't know how successful that's been, but here we are. 8 kids later, and she's still around. My mother-in-law, that is. Oh man. Anyway, I got to stop teasing her. The idea of taking the garbage that we create every day and turning it into energy isn't new. It's been around for a while. As a matter of fact, Europe is light years ahead of us on that front. But in the 1970s, a guy by the name of Jeff White had a professor while he was in school, or while he was learning from, who taught him to think a little bit outside the box. And rather than take the German approach, where you build everything bigger and stronger, and just, he said, no, just keep it simple, do what works, and live with that. So Jeff applied that principle to his technology, and what he came up with was a system that takes household garbage, shreds it, dries it, burns it, leaves no atmospheric pollutant, and turns the heat into, what you boil water with. Then you run a turbine, run a genset, and produce electricity. Now, that sounds rather simple, and it is. One of the first things I'll do before I get into how that all works is let you know why Plasco didn't work. And yes, part of it is because the guy behind it, well, he was somebody who would jump into projects and didn't really worry about whether it worked or not. As long as he could see something in it for him, then that's what he went with. And there's plenty of public evidence to support that argument. But at its heart, the plasma gas plant at Plasco had several fatal flaws. One was the metal required in the place where the flame was so exotic that it was extremely expensive. The other problem with the plant was it took too much of its own energy that it produced to run it. The sacrificial energy that they call it within the plant, like if you take a car motor, a lot of the power used or created by the engine is used just to run the engine before it comes out the back to go to the back wheels and drive the car. And that's what they call a sacrificial energy. So the effort to push the pistons up and down, the effort to turn the crankshaft and all that has to be provided by the internal combustion process. This has the same problem. The other problem is that the gas produced in the plasma gas process, the syngas, is highly corrosive. He chose to use internal combustion engines to be his prime driver, which means the thing that drives the generator. Instead of taking the syngas, burning it in a boiler scenario, creating steam and driving a turbine, he chose to use the piston thing. Well, that syngas is really hard on internal combustion engines, and they had no idea how long they were going to last. So there were some very significant flaws. In the first, when he began that process, he started doing it like batches of cookies. He'd take a lump of garbage, he'd put it in the thing, process it, take the remains out, put in more. But through conversation with other people, he realized you have to shred it and you have to dry it, because the moisture, if it's above a certain content, takes away from your overall energy output, because you have to use some of that energy to dry the fuel, the garbage. So he did that, and that helped, but it was never enough. And the thing that killed him, as far as the project going forward, was California decided that what he was going to do was not considered a green technology. And that really put the stake through the heart of the plasma situation of Plasco out of the railroad dump. So what's the difference between what Jeff does and what Plasco did? Well, Jeff, his technology, what they do is they take the garbage and they shred it. You have to mill the waste. Even if landfills only shredded their garbage, if that's the only treatment they did to their garbage, they could extend the life of their dumps by about 25%. Because think about it, if you take a vessel this size and you just throw it in the dump, that's how much room you take up in the dump. But if I were to run that through a shredder and make it into a little pile this big, I can put a lot more in the same space. So just the process of shredding alone makes sense. So that's one of the first things that happens. You pull out the things that are recycled, and the only thing worth recycling are aluminum and copper. Anybody know why?
The metal. They got a value.
Because they're so expensive to make in the first place. You put so much energy into them, it doesn't make sense to not recycle them. But to recycle plastic is about as brainless a thing as we've ever come up with. Because a ton of this contains 6,000 BTUs. Now, for those who don't know what a BTU is, it's called a British thermal unit, and it's the amount of energy required to raise 1 pound of water 1 Fahrenheit degree. Okay? So if you have a ton of plastic, you've got 6,000 of those things. So that's a tremendous amount of energy. Because if you think about it, that's raising 6,000 pounds of water 1 degree, or 100 pounds of water, unless you're clumsy like me.
And that plastic is actually a solid form of natural gas.
It's gasoline.
Same goes for the straw. Same goes for a lot of the clothes we're wearing, actually.
Actually, that's one of the things.
Polyester.
As a matter of fact, when we were in the Navy, we always talked about the polyester uniforms we were wearing if we ever got into a fire. Not a good idea. Yeah. Then they came out with the treated ones that wouldn't burn. Yeah, until you wash them 3 or 4 times. Yeah. Anyway, I won't get into that. But the bottom line is, this stuff is far more valuable as fuel than it is as throwing it out in the blue box, having somebody put more energy into it, melting it down, turning it into another kind of container, if they can do that with it. Most of it ends up in the landfill because there's such a narrow market for reprocessed plastics. Most of the things that are made of plastic require virgin plastics. Helmets and so on, safety things like car seats and all that, cannot be made from recycled plastic.
Especially food containers.
There
like
you go.
Ketchup bottles have to be virgin.
Virgins, exactly.
Well, the big market right now for plastic, like I saw at the outdoor show, seems to be doing decks and
Yeah, but how many
furniture.
decks can people build?
I know, decks and outdoor furniture.
So doesn't it make more sense to grind this when we're finished with this bottle of contents, right? Rather than throw the bottle away. Like I'm not for throwing it in the dump. I'm for throwing it into a shredder, turning it into what looks like chainsaw dust, putting it into a furnace, and extracting the energy that's in it, because it's nothing but hardened energy anyway. Using it to boil water to make steam and make electricity at a lot less than 83 or 43 cents a kilowatt hour, the way we're doing it now with the wind farms and solar panels. Running an energy from waste plant gives you several benefits right off the bat, and then I'll get into how the whole thing works. Number one is, first of all, you don't need a landfill anymore, nor do you need a recycling program. Now think about this. Forget the landfill for a second. The city of Ottawa makes 1,500 tons of garbage a day after diversion. Okay, that's what goes into Trail Road. If we could take everything and throw it into one box, instead of having that rainbow at the end of the driveway, how many less trucks would we need on the road? Now, the reason they won't do it, of course, is union jobs. Let's be honest about it. That's what would keep them from not wanting to go that road. It had nothing to do with the environment, nothing to do with what's good for the taxpayer. But when you think about it from a purely pragmatic point of view, or purely fiscal point of view, the smart thing to do is put it all in one thing and make the truck do one lap through the neighborhood and get it all. And take it out to the dump, grind it up, burn it, and that's it. You don't need any more landfills or anything like that. So shutting down the recycling program, no, I've never met a politician yet that says the recycling program pays for itself. As a matter of fact, they won't even say it comes close. It's a huge drain on municipal coffers. So if we could put an end to recycling as we do it now, okay, and go to this kind of recycling, that would save us untold millions of dollars. So that's the number one thing you brings with you. To open a new landfill, like they want to do out in
Carlsbad
or
Spring.
Russell.
Out there, yes.
Carlsbad Spring.
Yes. They want to put in, what it'll cost to put that landfill in is about $500 million. Now make no mistake, it's going to be a high-tech landfill, but it's still a hole in the ground. It still needs a clay liner, it still needs a leachate treatment processing system. Anybody not know what leachate is? Okay, what it is just when you have a dump and it rains, all the runoff mixes with the garbage, and you get a real toxic, which is brew that comes out the bottom. It's deadly poison.
Two things happen in a landfill. Liquids are heavy, so they drift and they permeate down.
Yeah.
And gases
Are
have
light.
no weight, are lighter, and they go up. So you trap the gases somehow.
Methane.
That's why
Yeah.
it pipes out of a
Yeah.
landfill, and you have the leachate, the liquid stuff, and that goes off into a pond and is treated somehow.
I'm not sure exactly how they treat it, but I know they have to have a leachate treatment system. So that adds to the cost. So that's why it's a $500 million just to dig a hole in the ground that's only going to last you 30 or 40 years. If you were to take that same money, let's say they put up an energy plant that actually works, would cost you roughly 300 to 400 million. Because these things aren't free. I mean, no matter which way you go with landfill or with waste management, it's expensive. Okay, but to do that, you would have a plant that would last indefinitely, because you could always, once a burner reaches the end of its life cycle, you have redundancy built in, so you take that one out, and it's just like Lego. You know, you can upgrade. It's modular, so when one piece is worn out, and it's all off-the-shelf stuff, you don't have to reinvent the wheel for this. You just snap in the new piece, or if you need to upgrade the whole system, you can do it. There's all kinds of ways that would give you basically an indefinite life cycle. So you don't have to worry about digging holes in the ground. So there's the benefits are you can put an end to recycling in a modern sense the way that we do it now, which is extremely wasteful. It's not good for the environment. Even from the point of view, if everything else is okay, you're putting twice as many trucks on the road, twice as many oil changes, twice as many bald tires, twice as many drivers, twice as many. You run down the list. This is long, the service that those trucks require. You've just doubled the whole impact by having a recycling blue box, green box, red box, you name the box color, pick the one you want, program. Okay, so we get rid of all that, put it all in one truck the way we used to, and run it out to the energy from waste plant, and now it extracts all that energy and puts it into the power grid at somewhere between 6 and 8 cents a kilowatt hour, if it's that high. Which is a lot better than 43 or 82, because that's what we're paying for our green energy now, the way that we're doing it in Ontario.
And it probably runs when the wind ain't
Yeah.
blowing.
Hey, I
and the
forgot
sun-
about that benefit.
When the sun doesn't shine and the wind doesn't blow, the plant
It's
still
not.
works.
It's not energy dependent. That's absolutely right.
Nice.
So how does it work? Well, okay. It's called vortex technology, and when you grind it up, the garbage, there is a kiln built into the system, so that if the moisture gets too high in the garbage, you can take some of the heat created and dry it to a much more reasonable amount of humidity within or moisture content within the fuel. So then you run it into what we call, it looks like a tall, looks like a chimney, but it's not a chimney, it's the burner. And it spins the combustibles, which are the fuel. So you grind that up, and this plastic is the fuel. It spins it really, really fast. And then it also hangs onto it in there for, I think it's the dwell time is, and don't quote me on this, I'm going by memory, it is about 4 to 5 minutes at 600 feet per second.
4 to 5 minutes or 45 minutes?
425.
Okay.
As in 4
Yeah,
plus 5.
It is.
So the dwell time is what makes it work. When you see a fire and there's smoke off that fire, what that tells you is combustion is not complete. That smoke is things that haven't been totally burned. Okay? That's why trucks of the 1970s, when they put their foot down and you see the big plume of black smoke, the engines weren't very efficient. They just poured more diesel fuel in when they wanted power. Today, you don't see that as much because they've worked on the efficiency, and now the combustion is more complete, and that's why they're getting better horsepower and they're getting better mileage, even though it's still not good compared to
But
the car.
they did remove the sulfur from the diesel.
Yeah, they've done a lot of things.
Yeah. They cleaned they cleaned the diesel.
They clean the diesel, but a lot of it has to do with what the engines are doing with the diesel as well. And same thing with gasoline cars. So when you see a fire and there's smoke off it, it's incomplete combustion. What this does is it hangs onto the fuel until combustion is complete. So there's no smoke. There is no atmospheric pollution. Now, there's things that you put in there that you can't burn. There's going to be your heavy metals, your zincs, your leads, and things like that. What do we do with those? Well, this is glass. I know, brilliant, right? What is it about glass that makes it unique compared to any other substance on Earth? Anybody want to venture a guess?
Well, it's made out of sand.
Well, yeah, but a lot of things are made out of sand. Sandcastles are made out of sand, by the way.
A what?
Sandcastles are made out of sand.
Has
No.
the elements of a liquid.
Yes, it does. However, what I'm driving at is This is the only substance known to man that does not crystallize when it changes state. When it's in a liquid form, you can see through it. When it's a solid form, you can still see through it. It also, because it doesn't crystallize, does not purify itself. Like when you look at an iceberg, it's fresh water. Why? Because when it freezes, it pushes all the contaminants to the outside of the crystal. So saltwater icebergs are actually fresh water. Because, yeah, it's a purification process. Glass doesn't do that. Like in that window, there's lime. Okay? How many have had a drink of wine out of a lead crystal glass? Well, there's lead in that glass. When's the last time somebody keeled over from drinking too much lead out of a glass? Doesn't happen because it's locked into the glass itself. You ever see a marble like a tiger eye or something like that? Try to get that paint out of there. Good luck. It ain't gonna happen because it's now trapped. So what happens is we leave the glass in the municipal waste stream. We don't pull it out and recycle it because recycling glass is about the second brainless thing we've ever done. Of course not. It's just like, what are you, stupid? We're not running out of sand.
No.
So anyway, what we do is we crush it up with everything else, and it runs about 12 to 14% of your municipal waste stream is glass. So we take that glass, it melts about half the temperature of combustion in the chamber. Like the chamber runs about 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit, glass melts about 1,600. So it's already